I'll present a nuanced overview of this research study, which critically examines the evolving demographic, social, cultural, and political landscape of Islam within contemporary Germany. The study aims to explore the extent to which Germany can be characterized as Muslim society, considering demographic realities, societal perceptions, integration processes, and the broader historical context. The study provides a multidimensional analysis of Germany's demographic composition, highlighting the significant presence of its Muslim population amid shifting societal attitudes towards religion, identity, and multiculturalism. By integrating statistical data, ethnographic insights, and scholarly perspectives, the research seeks to unravel the complex interactions between migration patterns, demographic trends, and societal acceptance that collectively shape Germany's evolving social fabric. The overarching question is whether Germany's societal identity is increasingly defined by its Muslim communities or whether the integration remains superficial, marked by cautious tolerance rather than profound societal incorporation. The findings reveal a demographic reality where by 2025, approximately 5.3 to 5.6 million individuals in Germany identify as Muslim, with nearly 3 million holding German citizenships, making Islam the second largest religious affiliation after Christianity. This growth is driven largely by migration, refugee influxes, and higher birth rates amongst Muslim communities. Despite this demographic shift, the religious landscape of Germany continues to decline in Christian institutional membership, with secular or non religious identities on the rise. Public perception remains predominantly tolerant, with Germans generally accepting religious symbols such as the headscarf and burqa within the framework of religious freedom. Societal attitudes also show an emphasis on shared democratic values over ethnic or racial identities, reflecting a move towards a more inclusive civic identity. However, underlying societal reservations persist, often manifesting as social reserve or limited intercultural engagement, with Muslim communities frequently living parallel lives within segregated enclaves. Politically and academically, the environment is characterized by support for migration and multiculturalism, yet there exists a degree of self censorship among scholars who navigate sensitivities surrounding Islam and migration. Historical legacies, including Germany's Nazi past and post World War II demographic transformations, continue to influence contemporary attitudes, shaping a societal consciousness that is both guilt ridden and eager to redefine its identity beyond ethno nationalist boundaries. Precisely quantifying Germany's Muslim population remains challenging due to the absence of ethnicity data and reliance on survey based estimates. The estimates of approximately 6 million Muslims with around 3 million German citizens of Muslim faith are derived from community reports and international studies like Pew Research, underscoring an increasingly visible Muslim demography. Concurrently, the Christian population is declining, with a growing segment identifying as agnostic or atheist, indicating an overall shift towards secularization. Now, in my study, I've frequently used the term most Germans, and I've employed this term to indicate that there's no widespread mainstream opposition or protest against the Islamization of Germany or against the influx of Muslims into the country. Although media reports, both televised and print, occasionally suggest that some Germans may be dissatisfied with the presence of Muslims or prefer not to have Muslim neighbors, such claims lack reliability, as these expressions are often covert or silent. It's of course plausible that a significant portion of German population holds negative opinions or feelings about Islam and Muslims privately. However, these sentiments do not constitute a majority opinion, given their lack of public expression. Since the majority remains silent and does not oppose Islamization openly, it can be inferred that they are largely accepting of the presence and integration of Muslims in Germany. The precise figures quantifying support or oppositions are unavailable and cannot be reliably determined without comprehensive nationwide surveys, opinion polls, or referenda. It's important to note that official statistics in Germany are inherently limited in reliability due to the absence of data on ethnicity in the government records. When figures indicate that, for instance, 3 million German citizens adhere to Islam, questions arise regarding the demographic composition of these individuals specifically, whether they are native Germans of European descent or migrants holding German citizenship. Since ethnicity and migration background are not systematically recorded in German census data, it becomes challenging to accurately delineate these groups. In this context, I have undertaken an analysis of various dimensions of German attitudes, behaviors, and contextual factors which collectively serve to elucidate and address the research question. My ethnographic fieldwork primarily consisted of conducting interviews, reading narratives authored by Germans, engaging in discussions within small groups, and observing German behaviors and reactions concerning topics related to Islam and Muslims. At times, I acted as an observer during private group discussions amongst Germans, through which I noted their responses and attitudes towards Islam and Muslim migrants in the context of migration. Additionally, I observed expert interviews on social media, national television channels, and radio broadcasts to gain deeper insights into the German mindset and attitude towards Muslims, including their behavior and approaches in dealing with Muslim migrants. Furthermore, I examined how Muslim migrants perceive Germans and how they behave or react in their interaction. My own lived experiences with Germans and Muslim migrants have further enriched my understanding, enabling a comprehensive analysis of this topic. Now, my study is limited in scope as it is based on small random sample and primarily relies on observations made in general and of course during city visits. The observations I made are self-evident. There is no public discourse, protest, or speeches against Islam or Muslim. I haven't come across on a large scale, even during elections. Similarly, there are no significant private or public protests against Islam or Muslims. Officially, there is no record indicating that the majority of Germans are opposed to Muslims or Islam. The only notable opposition comes from the Alternative for Germany, AfD party, which is gradually strengthening as a political force. It's important to note that AfD opposition is primarily against migration in general, rather than specifically targeting Muslims or Islam, and their stance does not yet reflect the majority opinion. Now, the official government position is pro-migration, which explains the rise of AfD. Other political parties do not oppose Islam or Muslim migration. Due to resource constraints and the broad scope of this study, I was unable to conduct extensive surveys or interview a large number of people, and connecting with the target population was of course challenging, and I did not collaborate with the private, public, or non-profit organizations because many of them are funded by the government, by the state, and I wanted to avoid potential influence from these entities. My goal was to provide an unbiased analysis based on available facts and evidence. I relied on government statements, media reports, and election polls as sources of official information. Several studies indicate a general acceptance and tolerance of Islam and Muslims in Germany, but they also highlight negative perceptions related to the rise of Islam and Muslim migration. However, there is no established legally permitted lobby specifically against Islam or Muslims, which may bias some research results, as scholars and researchers might fear being labeled as politically incorrect or racist. Hence, one could argue that it is the government that permits the construction of mosques rather than the general public. Nonetheless, election results suggest that most Germans do not oppose Muslims or migration, as these issues did not appear to be the major factors influencing voting behavior or election outcomes. Even if anti-migration sentiments influenced voting, such motives are not openly expressed due to large legal restrictions. Then a significant portion of the population appears to prefer identifying as something other than German, other than their traditional national identity, or in some cases to avoid any specific identification altogether. Some individuals I found adopt veganism or vegetarianism as a lifestyle and a core aspect of their identity, often intertwined with practices like yoga or driven by commitments to animal rights, environmental activism, or a love of nature. Others align themselves with groups or cultural concepts from regions such as Asia, Africa, Middle East, across the globe. Some identify with gender or queer identities, while others may see fetishism as part of their self concept. Additionally, many derive their identity from involvement in specific sports, hobbies, or recreational activities, leading them to join related communities. Some have converted to different religions or spiritual paths or follow faiths distinct from their original beliefs. Further, most no longer define their country primarily in terms of being ethnically German. Most of them were not proud to be German, the ones which I came across. Instead, they emphasize shared culture, diversity, and the qualities of good citizenship and humanity. This shift is also rooted in Christian values. Additionally, the contemporary German government has played a role in fostering this new perspective on national identity, one rooted in shared cultural and civic values as well as the constitution. After World War II, the concept of nation based on ethnicity was replaced by a post national identity that emphasizes shared democratic principles, diversity, inclusivity, and multiculturalism. And the situation is such that politicians have promoted migration into the country. But many people are not fully prepared for it. There is a tendency for individuals to feel hesitant about openly expressing their true opinions as they may be internally opposed to migration but reluctant to voice their views publicly. Some individuals claiming to be left wing support migration, considering themselves international or global citizens. They endorse political agendas that promote diversity, multiculturalism, and integration, yet often do not feel the need to personally integrate with migrants. Furthermore, these individuals are generally not in favor of national identity or nationalist sentiments. They do not consider themselves racist and accept everyone in their country, emphasizing diversity. They assert that culture evolves over time and are less focused on preserving German culture or identity. Instead, they seem to intent on moving away from traditional German identity, rejecting nationalism and expressing a desire to do away with German cultural exclusivity, while multiculturalism theoretically includes accepting various cultures, languages, implying that they being a global citizen entails embracing multiple languages in practice, but most Germans, including the right and the left wing, prefer to speak only in German. Many of them hate or dislike English. This contradiction creates a sense of identity crisis among Germans characterized by confusion and distortion. This crisis can be partly attributed to historical factors such as the Holocaust, as well as the current political pressures that promote a pro migration trend while maintaining a reserved attitude. The factors influencing the growth of Islam, the study attributes the growth of Islam to multiple factors, in fact. Migration, especially from the Middle East following the 2015 refugee crisis from Syria, high birth rates amongst Muslim populations, and societal acceptance of religious diversity. Ethnographic fieldwork, including interviews and participant observation, reveals that Muslim communities tend to maintain close, knit ties and observe their religious practices actively, further embedding Islam into the social landscape. Germans demonstrate a complex attitude towards Islam. On one hand, there is widespread acceptance of religious symbols and recognition of Islam as part of cultural diversity. Court rulings tend to be more cautious, balancing religious freedom with social boundaries or societal boundaries. On the other hand, many Germans perceive Islamic practices as addressable through improved integration and education, with some viewing migration as an opportunity for social renewal. Public attitudes are generally tolerant with societal acceptance extending across political spectrum, except for the far right alternative for Germany, AFD party, which primarily opposes migration, as I've already mentioned, in general, rather than Islam or Muslims in specific. Despite demographic growth, societal integration remains superficial. Communities often live in parallel with limited intercultural interaction beyond professional or utilitarian contexts. Germany's cultural identity is increasingly defined by shared civic values rather than ethnic or racial origins. A notable decline in nationalist sentiments and patriotism is evident, with national symbols like the flag often overviewed as historically charged or associated with extremism. Many Germans consciously distance themselves from ethno-nationalist narratives favoring a post-national inclusive conception of identity rooted in democracy and human rights. Historical guilt related to Nazi atrocities and demographic decline post World War II have also played a pivotal role in shaping current attitudes. The societal shift away from nationalism and ethnic pride is partly a response to this legacy, fostering a more tolerant but cautious societal approach to migration and cultural diversity. Additionally, societal transformations such as the sexual revolution and the lifestyle changes that occurred during the 1960s and 70s have contributed to declining birth rates, creating a demographic pressures that migration now helps to address. Looking at the perception and integration and multiculturalism, most Germans perceive integration as the assimilation of migrants into German norms, emphasizing language acquisition and norm adoption. However, social engagement remains limited, with migrants often living within their own communities and maintaining distinct cultural practices. There exists a paradox where Germans support diversity in principle but show reluctance to form deep intercultural bonds or socialize extensively with migrants. Coming to the academic and scholarly perspective, the academic environment reflects a cautious stance, with self censorship prevalent among scholars, especially professors, dealing with sensitive issues like Islam, migration, and Middle Eastern politics. Funding constraints and political sensitivities influence research agendas, raising questions about the objectivity and integrity of scholarly inquiry in this domain. From the perspective of Muslim migrants, there is often confusion or frustration regarding German societal norms and attitudes. Many perceive Germans as reserved, unfriendly, or superficial in their social interactions, while Germans may harbor stereotypes about Muslim communities, emphasizing perceived cultural differences and stereotypes related to gender roles and morality. In conclusion, I could say Germany is undergoing a profound transformation demographically, culturally, and socially. Islam's growing presence signifies a shift toward a more multicultural society characterized by cautious acceptance rather than full societal integration. The country's identity is evolving from traditional ethno nationalism toward a civic oriented, inclusive framework rooted in democratic values. Nevertheless, enduring challenges such as social cohesion, mutual understanding, and addressing stereotypes remain crucial in shaping Germany's future as a truly diverse yet cohesive society. This study underscores that while Germany is increasingly Muslim in demographic terms, its social fabric remains complex, marked by historical legacies and societal ambivalence that influence the pace and depth of integration.